Hey, it's Schwartz. I'm getting calls that you're telling people that folks like Bruce Springsteen and Jimmy Buffett and Jimmy Page are sitting in on your shows because you think it's funny and you think it's showbiz. That's your new thing. Like, hey, Schwartz, it's showbiz, so just fucking lie. No, that doesn't work. That's not how it works. Bruce Springsteen's not sitting in with you. Jimmy Buffett doesn't even know who you are. Maybe someday. But please, I don't know what got into you, but it's show business. Just lie isn't going to help you. It's going to hurt you. It is show business, but it's based in reality. So stop with this. It's showbiz, Schwartz. And no, we're not going to just add random shit to your posters because you think that's funny. So for reals, this whole showbiz kick that you're on's got to stop. Stop lying to people. Stop lying to yourself. And it's the beginning of tour. It's the first night. Please do not do anything ridiculous. Don't give away illicit substances to anyone. Don't take them from anyone. Don't do them on stage. Just music, music, music. Great show, tight band. Yeah, that's it.
All right. And we're back. Andy Frasco's World Saving Podcast. I'm Andy Frasco. How's our heads? How's our minds? Are we staying out of trouble? Are we not letting the government fuck with our vibe? You know what I'm saying? This is why we got the boys on here to talk about the government not fucking with our vibe, because we're going to open the show with two guys who have this amazing podcast, Love for Goods, the War on Drugs podcast featuring comedian Clayton English and Greg Glod. Guys, thanks for being part of the show. Let's fucking go. I appreciate it.
Nah, thank you for having us, man.
So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about the podcast before I talk about my problems that I need some advice on.
I think this podcast is for everybody. I think the title you might think it's just for people who maybe dabble in drugs, or maybe it's involved for people who have been a victim of the war on drugs. But this podcast highlights how the war on drugs affects every single person.
Right.
And just the impact that it's had on society and how it's been going, how they've been going about it has like ruined people's lives. And I think Greg was so dope because he was able to like give you these little missing puzzle pieces because he knows it from the legal side and he knows it from the origin side. So yeah, I think that's my little quick run, but I throw it to my homeboy Greg and let him take it.
No, I think you hit it, but yeah, I mean, we have all these policies in place, and I think we all went through kind of like the DARE program and all these scare tactics that the government kind of provided on drugs, and we just live in this world where we just throw people away because of these crimes and whatever else when they're struggling with addiction, and no one really asks a lot of questions about like the why. Like, why are we here? Why is this the only way we do this? And our podcast kind of goes through how we have done the same playbook over and over again since like the 1920s. On failing with drug policy, why we keep throwing addicts in prison, and how we keep getting worse results. And so I think that's what this podcast is really all about. It's like, why are we here? How the hell did we get here? And how do we get out of it? And so that's really what we kind of go through. We tackle it from like the history and then into opioid epidemic and fentanyl and, talking to addicts and people that are incarcerated for weed still and all these different things. It's pretty fascinating, like how the drug war doesn't just touch, like Clayton was saying, people that use drugs or in prison, touches everyone. And so that's what we really want to get across.
Is it racism?
Definitely.
Right. Shit. Seems like
Definitely.
A lot more African Americans are getting popped for drugs versus, Susie from Calabasas,
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying with those missing puzzle pieces. Doing this podcast, I was able to see that the war on drugs, we always think it starts with Richard Nixon, but it goes back to Harry Anslinger. And his whole motivation was purely racist and wanting to, vilify certain people, and that's kind of the basis for you. I want them to listen to the podcast. I feel like I'm telling them to end it by saying this, but it's not even the ending. It's in the first episode. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, Clayton, it's kind of like the Titanic. Like, we all know the boat sinks.
We know how it's going to end up.
Yeah.
You know
I don't think you're spoiling anything there.
Yeah, man. That little boy going to be Darth Vader. Like, if you saw them prequels.
I just think it's fucked up. What about, like, keeping the privatized prisons funded? Is that a part of why so many people are going to prison over these petty drug crimes?
For me, go ahead, Clayton. I'm sorry, man.
Well, no, I was gonna say I think I know where Greg was gonna go. I think it's part of it, but I think also just the incentive to make money or get money from this drug war or hit your quota is like one of those things where once you follow the money, you start unveiling all types of things. It's like they have to arrest these amount of people if they want to get the same budget they got from last year. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And, I think it's public and private prisons and stuff. I mean, they both are, riddled with, problems. And a lot of this has to do with that. But no, it's almost like with Enron and these banks, like we bail them out because they're too big to fail. Like the drug war and the prison industrial complex are too big to fail at this point. There are too many jobs, too much money, too much funding. And then you start looking at these like grant programs at the federal level that incentivize, low-level drug arrests. And this is how people build up their resume. If you're a prosecutor, you want as many convictions as you can. If you're a cop, you want as many arrests as you can. This is how a lot of the government is funded off these things. You'd be shocked to see like how many like fines, fees, and civil asset forfeiture where the government can take your stuff without even charging you a crime actually funds law enforcement agencies, like significant amounts of their budget. Yeah. So like in Ferguson, that was a great example. Obviously everything went crazy there after they had this like one issue, but there was so much underlying stuff that was going on where their government was essentially funded on the backs of poor Black people. And they had enough getting all these traffic tickets and things like that. They were just using their community as fundraisers. So when this happened, there was this bubbling effect underneath that was like, we're tired of this. It wasn't just about the one death. It was about everything else that was bubbling up. And it's crazy. I mean, some places it's, over half their budget is from revenue, just from the people that are probably in the worst positions to help pay for that. It's pretty wild. So it's too big to fail. I mean, and long story short.
Isn't that enslavement?
Yeah.
Some could say.
Yeah. I mean, that's the prison complex. That's the last, remnants that this country has of slavery, So
nothing has changed.
A lot of it is stuff by a different name at this point. And it just holds people back in a lot of ways. And, generationally. I mean, think about, the amount of trouble that like I got in as a kid, just screwing around, living in like a white suburb with like a dad as a cop and a mom and them both there, let alone being a poor Black kid in the inner city, just doing some BS. And having your dad, go to prison, your mom going to prison, your mom struck out on drugs and there's no help, it's generational. I mean, we can start making improvements. Like you said, legalization is going to start helping, kind of reducing these arrests and start helping, but we're not going to see significant social impacts, a lot of this stuff for generations down the line. Like, how do you start that process? I mean,
I mean, just the disparity in the crack and the cocaine sentencing, like that can't be undone at this point,
because people are still in. Yeah, it's crazy that crack and cocaine, the only difference really is like baking powder and the amount of time that it like lasts in your system. And 100 times more cocaine at the federal level was the same sentence as, for cocaine to crack. And so you had to have 100 times more cocaine, powder cocaine, because that was much more considered a white drug, and then other than crack. And so that's dropped to 18 now. Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's basically who uses crack more than cocaine. What is it?
Or at least perceived to be.
What community? Yeah. I'm not trying to stereoterotype crack, but like...
No, that's where it came from. I mean, then we get into that. Like with Len Bias, he was the Maryland like basketball superstar, died of a coke overdose.
Right.
Got drafted by the Boston Celtics, and they said that this was crack, and so they vilified crack. Passed a bill on that and made it like 100-to-1 ratio for prison sentences. It's fucking crazy, actually.
And the guy's testimony that they took to figure out the sentencing or whatever, they took it from an undercover cop. This dude was the most fraudulent, made up motherfucker. I'm sorry, my bad. I didn't know if I cut. But he just lied about everything. He was a cop. He lied about like witnesses. He lied about where he went to school. He lied about so many things. And this is who they based their information off of, that these laws lasted for 30 plus years, probably longer. Yeah.
Crack, man. And then it probably wasn't even crack. He just signed an NBA contract. He was getting some good
they
coke.
found out it was like really high
fish
grade
scale.
cocaine.
Yeah, it was like that.
Cocaine.
It's like that fish book when you have as a kid, like the rainbow fish. That's so incredibly racist, and this country is still, they could hide it over a blanket, but this country is still incredible. I remember, having a situation where I got caught having sex in my car, and I just got a little warning. And I know my friend he was African American, also had sex in the car, and they put him to jail. This is a real fucking problem in our country that, we could hide it all we want with laws and changing the names of these laws, but it's a racism problem we're having in this country. And it's scaring me that, what's the most petty thing you've seen, petty crime that someone's in jail for 20 years over something, the silliest petty crime that someone could get out with no problem if they had money?
Louisiana.
What happened?
A dude down there, right? Like $10 bag of weed. He's in there for life because they have repeat offender laws, and it doesn't matter what the offense was.
Yeah.
So your third strike is you're going away.
Yeah. So, to your point, but if you have a good prosecutor, you're able to potentially drop those charges, defer them. Like, it's in the hands of the prosecutor and the government whether they want to initiate that. So, yeah, Clayton's bringing up a case. This guy, Kevin Allen, it was his third, case. So now he's considered a habitual offender for selling a $10, $20, bag of weed. And he's in prison, for the rest of his life because of that.
And he can't get out?
There's ways that the governor can help commute, and there's some things that can happen, but those,
there's got to be action taken from, outside. Like, he shouldn't be in there in the first place.
Right.
And the amount of work it takes to get him out but yeah, like.
What type of action do you think we need to get people like that out of the jail system?
A lot of it's just awareness. And, how many times have we seen, some white chick does a true crime podcast and, someone gets out of prison. I mean, do you think Ned Syed would be, still in
Kim Kardashian? Kim Kardashian stopped going down to the prison, man. She was on a good little run. Yeah. She was on a good little run. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if we can get her back.
Yo, shout out to Netflix. Let's go.
Those are the types of things, as crazy as it is. It's just a lot of the times media attention and accountability. I mean, who's your local prosecutor? People don't we talk about president and who your congressman is and your senator. That's all well and good, and they do some things, but it's the local actors that are like the biggest ones that kind of move and shift things. You can write the best law in the world and say this, that, and the other thing. But if your local district attorney, your local prosecutor, your local judge just says, fuck that, we're going to continue to do things. And they get to do that kind of under the shroud of mystery because no one pays attention. You have to pay attention when you start shining lights on some of these atrocities. These aren't like crazy few and far between cases. These are things that are routinely happening in our criminal justice system, even if you're not getting locked up, because we hear this all the time. Like, our prisons aren't filled with people, with a joint in their pocket. And that's true. But there is a bunch of people in prison where it started because they had a joint in their pocket and they got arrested and they got sent to jail and they couldn't afford $200 worth of bail. So they're there for 3 days. They lost their job. They lost their kid. They have nothing to come back to now. And they start committing more crimes, and it just keeps routinely going. And so the impact that the criminal justice system has just at that lowest level, even from an arrest, like, we could probably survive and manage a couple of these things. But if you're a 17-year-old kid or an 18-year-old kid, you have some job that you're barely able to get, or you're trying to apply for schools, maybe you're trying to get out of your system and situation, you get arrested for that, and you're going to be disparately impacted by the criminal justice system. It's such an uphill battle. Yeah. And, race has a huge part to do with that. I mean, you can't look at the numbers of people that are in prison and who are arrested and the prison sentences and lengths of stay and all this stuff and not say that there is a racial issue within our criminal justice system of the drug war.
Why do you think people are addicted to drugs?
I think there's a lot of reasons. There's a chemical aspect to it. It's the one thing that makes you feel good. It's just like any addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, anything else. Like when other things are missing in your life, you kind of turn to these things. And that has a huge aspect to it. This is why we see addiction levels rise during, points of trauma. You see going back even to the Civil War, heroin became a huge drug of choice for people. Because imagine being in a friggin' trench during the Civil War and the trauma that brought around to you. And then you look at, during like Vietnam, all these, GIs coming back, they were addicted to opium and heroin and things like that.
How do you shoot a gun on heroin?
Yeah.
How do you
not shoot a gun?
How do you not shoot a gun?
Right.
It's just like, it's like, damn.
I mean, that's a lot of it going on. It's so much of the mental health side of it. Obviously, they have like chemical components to it, and that you get, addicted to. But a lot of this is on the social aspects. No, you're talking about like sex addiction and things like that. It's triggering those same parts of your brain because something else is whatever's missing.
Yeah, and you're looking for something a lot of times.
Right.
Like when you, especially like, younger people that get involved with drugs. A lot of times they're the outcasts, or they're, the only requirement is you got to do drugs. It's a community. You know what I'm saying? Even if you just smoke weed, you're going to find out who else does what other things. Yeah. And just the stigma that we have with it, like weed isn't the worst thing, but it teaches you how to be a drug user. It teaches you how to be sneaky. When you were a teenager, you had them eye drops. You were trying to spray yourself in the face with Febreze before you went in that. Like, you're trying to cover it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
You got a point. Yo, Clayton, tell me about this. You and Eric Andre are suing the Atlanta's Clayton County Police Department.
Yeah.
What's going on? Why are you and Eric doing this?
We got an episode, and we just kind of talk about it. And it's crazy because it came together separately. The war on drugs was something else that me and Greg were working on. And I saw that Eric Andre had been harassed at the Atlanta airport. And I had gone through a similar situation where they stopped me on the jet bridge and they were asking me, this is after I've gone through security. This is after TSA. This is, I'm in the airport. I'm getting on the plane, the jet bridge that connects you to the actual airplane is where they came out and they started asking me questions. Do I have drugs? And first of all, I was going to LA. And so like, I was confused already. Like, who's going to bring drugs to LA? Like, I'm going to get them when I get there. Like, what kind of dummy? What are you doing? Like, I was like, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but I think this is, so I just remember, and I do remember I really called Eric Andre to see who messed with him, because I remember it was a short Black officer and it was a tall Asian officer. And I just remember thinking, this is a reverse Rush Hour. Like, this is Rush Hour. It's like, I'm here with Chris Chan and Jackie Tucker. This is crazy. But I should be upset. But then everybody else got to go around me. Right. So many white people just went around me, able to get on the flight and everything. They searched, they didn't find anything. They're trying to be buddy-buddy. They allowed me to get on the flight. And I'm just thinking, they're going to come and take me off this flight. I don't even know what I did. Right. But I didn't even say anything until I saw Eric Andre. He was on Jimmy Kimmel. He talked about his situation. I reached out to him. And then, fast forward, he had some people give me a call and ask me if I wanted to be involved in this lawsuit. And they came and told us what they discovered in the 8 months between me and Eric Andre's situation. It's supposed to be a drug interdiction program. They stopped 3 people. One person had maybe 10 grams of weed. Somebody else had some gummies. And somebody else had pills in a bottle that wasn't identified. But in the same time frame, they confiscated $1 million from passengers.
Oh, my God.
And I believe 67% of the people that they stopped were Black, if I'm not mistaken.
Fucking bullshit.
I think it's like 8 to 10% of like airline travelers are Black at any given time. And so you stop like 400 people and then like 200 whatever are Black, and they're calling this random. I mean, I forget what the percentage was. It was like one trillionth of a percent or something. Yeah. It was something crazy. Yeah.
For it to be random, it would have had to have been 1 in 1 trillion, like something crazy, some ridiculous long.
Clayton, take those racist motherfuckers down, baby. Go get them. Every one of them. Take them down.
And the thing is, nothing was taken from me, but what it opened up was people reaching out to me. Right. Because I reached out to Eric. And people are like, hey, they took $15,000 from me when I came through there. And then you'll run into these people who are like, well, why did those people have so much money? And one thing I'll tell you about Atlanta, it's an entertainment city. Right. Like, if I go out, I'm a comedian. If I go out and I do a show and I sell my T-shirts, if I sell my merch, I'm probably going to come back with some cash.
Right.
This is a city full of musicians, A lot of people make beats. A lot of time they're paid in cash. We got a large strip club culture down here.
Oh, yeah,
a lot of people are paid in cash. A lot of serving and wait staff people. So I don't like when people are like, well, if somebody had cash, that means they're a criminal. It's U.S. currency.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're saying you can't have this, then...
And it's show business. We get paid in cash more than we get paid in checks.
Come on, man.
Yeah, shout out to the Claremont Lounge, by the way. I fucking love the Claremont. Let's go.
You know about that, man?
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
That's my place. Old titties. You know, I love me some old titties.
Yes. Yes.
Guys.
The only strip club that operates off a jukebox.
and menopause.
Clayton, I teach you a few things. You teach me a few things.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Oh man, thanks you guys for being on the show. I got one more question, and then I'll let you go. This has been awesome. We should be friends. This has been so fun.
Definitely,
and anything
man.
we need, Mara Davis is my close. She books our show, and I'm glad that we got to. We're family in that side. So I bring mushrooms everywhere I go. On planes, on everywhere. I'm wondering how much trouble can I really get for having mushrooms on me on an airplane, in like Arkansas, places that aren't as legalized as I live in Denver, where everyone holds an eighth in their pocket. But tell me about this. What should I warn about this?
Asking a question, but I have so many questions just off your. But Greg is the dude to answer this for you.
I take mushrooms every day. That's my thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, we do a podcast interview with this guy Jesse Gould, who was an Army veteran who was suffering severe PTSD, and kind of going back to like how. Our government continues to just fail everyone on this. They were just pumping him with a bunch of antidepressants and things. And he was actually, starting to drink and having, bad suicidal thoughts. And so he went down to Peru, sold all his stuff and did an ayahuasca trip. And now he runs a nonprofit that helps other veterans get down there and go through this sort of stuff. And so we talk about all the benefits of like psilocybin that has on like antidepressant. And there's so much better results coming out of that than just all the drugs that people are pumped with right now. And so I'm hoping place like I live in DC, we just did very similar with like what Denver and Colorado did, decriminalizing and things like that. So I'm, I think it's the research on that is becoming really good. But yeah, from the trouble standpoint, it depends. It depends on how much you have and how big of a jerk the TSA agent needs to be. Technically, it's a Schedule I drug, which is crazy because that means it has no medical value or purpose.
What the fuck?
Right.
Yeah, that's marijuana is a Schedule I drug. Cocaine Schedule II.
Like that.
Cocaine Schedule II?
Yeah, just arbitrary. Yeah, let's just start throwing. Yeah. I think they literally had like a dartboard or something like that. And they're just like, all right, cocaine now. All right, let's just fucking throw it out here. Schedule II now. It's crazy. So, technically it's a Schedule I drug. It's federally, illegal. But if you're bringing it through, a place where it's, illegal, the feds could technically do something about it. But are they going to want to bring a federal charge on some guy holding like 2-3 grams of mushrooms? Probably not. The local cops could do something about it, but they'd have to like test it and do all this stuff and take it to a lab.
Right.
You can get in trouble, particularly depending on quantity, if they think like you're selling or doing something like that. But if you have like a little bit, again, I'm not giving legal advice here.
Come on, give me some legal advice, Greg.
Okay,
come on.
Look.
It's very...
So go check out Lava for Good's The War on Drug podcast, co-hosted by these fucking awesome guys, Clayton, Greg. Thanks for spreading the good word. Thanks for doing the good fight. Keep fighting, bros. Let them know that you are here to stop racism and to stop the drug problem, okay? No bullshit. I want you to fuck this drug problem up, okay, boys?
That's
a promise,
man.
Andy.
Go get them.
Love you, man. This is awesome.
Go fucking get them, boys. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Later, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Enjoy the next interview. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Later,
guys. Thanks, Andy.
Hey. Hey, guys. I totally spaced out and forgot to talk about our sponsors during my little opening segment. Dialed In Gummies. Yes, the best. I can't wait to go back to Denver and finally get them into my body again. If you are in the Colorado area, go grab some Dialed In Gummies. They are the best. I'm telling you. I haven't been able to have them in my body, and I could feel the difference when I have them in me and when I have them not. Ooh, that sounded hot. But grab some dialed in gummies. They're the best. Nick says this big word about them. Homogenize. Yes, they homogenize, and they are rosin gummies. Homogenized means that every little bite has the perfect amount of THC in them. So you're not going to be worried. If you take a half a gummy, you're exactly getting half the dosage. Perfect world. And they taste great. And the people who run that place, Keith and the crew, they're just the best. And they've been sponsoring this podcast for almost damn near a year now. So, ladies and gentlemen, go grab some dialed in gummies if you're in the Colorado area. Maybe you have a concert you're going to. Maybe you're going to go see Red Rocks, go see a gig of Red Rocks, or the Mission Ballroom, or wherever you are. Dillon Amphitheater, all these great venues in Colorado. Go grab yourself a can of them and have them. They're great for sleeping. They're great for just keeping your vibes right. So, grab some dialed in gummies whenever you have a chance. All right, back to the show. All right, next up on the interview hour, we have guitar player, producer, Isaiah Sharkey. Yes, one of the baddest guitar players out there, in my opinion. Hailing out of Chicago, Illinois. This man's played with everyone. He's played guitar for D'Angelo. He's played with John Mayer. The list goes on and on. He is a true talent. I just love everything about him. His story was amazing. I met him on Jam Cruise, and I really think you're going to love this interview. Hey, Chris, play a little Isaiah while I'm pimping him out a little bit. And holy shit, he is the real deal. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoy this interview. You're going to love it. Isaiah Sharkey.
Isaiah, nice to meet you, bro.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, man. How's it going?
Going pretty good. Having some fun.
What's your vibe, bro?
Oh, well, my vibe is whatever the day is. It's just peace. As long as it's peaceful, that's all that matters to me.
How important is peace to you?
It's very important. It's just as peace. It's just as important as love. It's you're able to relax, be calm, be cool, treat yourself well, and treat others well.
Have you ever had a time in your life where you felt like you weren't peaceful?
You have moments, but for the most part, I try to stay pretty peaceful and keep a peaceful environment. Good energy.
What was like living in Chicago?
It's great. It's a big city. It's a amazing city. A lot of great things. Some things that are not so great, but it's home. It's pretty good. There's a lot of music, a lot of good food, a lot of different seasons. It's beautiful, beautiful people.
What are the things you don't agree on about Chicago?
Well, just like anywhere else, the violence that happens in Chicago and, stuff like that.
Yeah. How long have you grown up there?
All my whole life, yeah.
Yeah, I heard some great stories about, you've been in this. Your dad was a musician? Or
Dad was a musician, yep.
And was that like intimidating to get better or was it like something you needed like a spark up your ass to like get better?
Well, I think a spark up your ass is always necessary to get better.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if it was necessarily intimidating, but it was definitely he challenged me to challenge myself, and so and my brothers and sisters as well. And so that's what I grew up with very very. If he believed in anything that you did, that you decide to do, that you would be the best at it or the best you can be at it. So if you're a janitor, be the best janitor.
Yeah.
If you're a football player, be the best football player, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Have you ever thought like you were being the best at something and then your dad came on like, hey, that could have been better?
Oh, yeah. There's been plenty of times I would learn something and transcribe a solo or a song or something like that and be like, Dad, look what I learned. He said, yeah, you plan to write notes, but go back and figure out why they played it and how they played it, and get the tone together. It was always some type of critiquing. And then if it was right, he'll tell you it's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely.
Would that ever piss you off?
Oh, yeah, it pissed me off. Hell yeah, it pissed me off quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it made me the musician that I am today. It made me very detailed. It made me keep my integrity with learning music up. And I think that's one thing. The reason why I, work as much as I do is because I take pride in learning the details and, grabbing the feeling behind everything.
Yeah, it's. I'm not really an athlete, but I admire athletes so much about the dedication it takes. Like I love Kobe's. I love the Kobe's of the world. Love the Michaels of the world. Like I grew up in LA, so I had Kobe. You had Michael. These guys who are just relentless about getting better. Was that ever inspiring for you to be a better musician?
Oh yeah, you know, when you see someone else that's great at what they do, you know, it's like, man, I want to be great like that at what I do. You know, so there's always you always surround yourself and expose yourself to people that are great at what they do. You know, so that you don't want to be around or see so much slack. You know,
Right.
Because then that'll give you kind of a slothful spirit or a slothful way of doing things. So I tend to like to be around people that are greater.
When did you realize you were great?
I don't know if I'd necessarily say I realized when I was great. I just say that I'm always striving for greatness.
Yeah.
And if that makes me great, then, you know, maybe someone will say that, but I'm just looking at greatness. I'm trying to be the best I can be at every moment. So, you know, the greatest thing is to be as good as you can in the moment.
Right.
And that's your best.
Yeah.
And then that will make you great every time that you do something when you're trying your very best.
How hard is it to be in the moment?
You know, there's times when certain situations won't allow you to be free enough to be in the moment. Like, you know, if you're playing again with musicians or surrounding yourself with people who are not like-minded, it'll hinder you from being able to be in the moment and play efficiently or to express in an effective way. But even in that, there's a level of improvisation that you take or you utilize to try to still make the moment shine.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what I'm like trying to get at. Like improvisation isn't supposed to be perfect, or do you think it should be perfect?
No, I don't think it should be perfect. I mean, I think improvisation is just what you leave room for mistakes. You leave room for to search. The whole point of improvisation is searching, and in searching in anything, you're going to have little bumps in the road and hiccups, but it's up to you to decide whether or not you go this way or that way right after the hiccup.
Right.
And so you practice.
Yeah.
You practice, you know, correcting whatever those bumps are in the road are, you know, in the moment.
Do you have that same philosophy about just being a human?
Absolutely. That comes first. That comes before being a musician. I think, you know, once you realize that as a human being, then you say, okay, all of that, your attitude, your personality, all of that spills over into your music. Right. You know, and the feeling, you know, you as a person have feelings. So when you bring those feelings into the music, the music begins to have a feeling and have a feeling. That's the most important part of music anyway.
What's easier, improving life or improving music?
Say that again?
What's easier for you, improving life or improving music?
I don't know if one is easier than the other. I think.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I think it's hand in hand. I mean, I think that life is music. You know, it consists of energy and vibration. Just like, you know, music is the same way as life. You know, everything comes from some sort of energy or vibration, and so that's what we're dealing with as musicians. And so, to deal with those frequencies and vibrations and energy is an ongoing quest.
Yeah,
you know.
You know, I heard a great story about you that you saw D'Angelo at a record store, and you ran up to his ass.
I did. I made fun of him first. I said, "Oh
what'd
man,
you say?
he looks like a fake D'Angelo because he was a little heavier at the time." And you know, and then I looked again. I said, double back. I said, "Wait a minute, that is him." So I'm a massive friend, and the guys that I admire play with him, and a mentor of mine who had passed at that time, Spanky Alford, was part of his band, and so
were they all Chicago kids?
No, they were not Chicago musicians. They were all fantastic musicians from all over.
Oh,
like Pino Palladino was originally from Wales, you know, by way of London. And then you have, you know, Roy Hargrove, who's from, I believe, Texas, and then Spanky Alford's from, you know, so all of these people are from different places. They were legends playing with D'Angelo, and that's why he reached for them.
So when he brought you into the group to start recording like Black Messiah and stuff, what was like your philosophy? How old were you then?
I was about 19.
So to have the balls
19, 20 years old.
to get up to D'Angelo and be like, yo, D'Angelo, I'm your guy.
Well, I didn't say that.
Was it implied or?
No, it was never implied. I came up, solely as a fan. I was like, "Excuse me, are you D'Angelo?" He's like, "Yes." I said, "Well, listen, I just want to let you know I'm a huge fan, and I love your music." A guy who was a friend of mine who was also a mentor, Spanky Alford, played with you, and it just so happened that me and Spanky Alford had a lot of things in common. We would meet up with each other and sometimes be learning the same things, the same lines from the same song, same artist at the same time. And so we had similar styles. And so, when D'Angelo said, yeah, I knew Spanky, he said, was that you playing in the store? I said, yeah, that was me. He said, man, you sound, you remind me of Spanky, even your spirit. So he heard me in the store again and went back in the store, played, and he asked me to be a part of his band. I definitely wasn't like, saying, hey, I'm your guy,
No.
I didn't, that's not my
your vibe
at all.
Like, because I was like, growing in a major city, it's like you kind of have to like survive. You got to really go out there and express yourself to get these gigs. When you're working with like a guy like D'Angelo who loves your music and you're 19 years old and you're like, this is you're like, you love his music too. I mean, it's pretty fascinating to have this like script in life where like Spanky, like he was your mentor. Like why was Spanky the guy that you like felt wanted to be your mentor?
Well, he was one of my mentors. I mean, he was more like a big brother.
What did he teach you?
Well, he just taught me different things about approaches that he took with certain songs and music. My biggest mentor is my father,
right?
And then my uncles, my dad's brothers, they were guitar players, and so I basically just took all that I could, all the information I could from all of the people that I admired, and gathered that information and studied, and so. But I liked Spanky because of just the style of his music and his style of his guitar playing, and it sounded close to what I grew up on. I grew up on a lot of jazz music and R&B and soul and rock and gospel because I grew up in church. But mainly, most of the stuff that I listened to was jazz music. I just so happened to be doing a lot of gospel stuff in the beginning of my career because I was playing in church, but. And some of the music that I grew up with, I don't get a chance to do it as often as I would like to. But,
right.
But that's just one part of, the many things that I grew up playing and listening to.
I talked to Corey Henry about the gospel music business, and he said it's kind of fucked up because like people are, not paying you enough for it and they're blaming that it's for God and stuff. Like, what was your take about the gospel music scene?
Well, there's a bit of that. I've had some good experiences. I've had some bad experiences with certain artists and facilities that taught religion and stuff like that. And some would try to use God to not pay, and then some people didn't have a problem with playing. So, and it's the same thing with what they would call the secular world. When you're dealing with R&B artists or hip hop artists or whatever, so forth. It really just depends on people. The whole industry, music industry, can be shady and it can be great all at the same time. But you just try to take the good out of it and roll with that and not dwell on the negative and and make the best out of it. And that's it. Learn the lessons that you need to learn from the negative stuff in any situation, whether it's gospel or the church or the world,
What was the biggest lesson you learned from the music industry that helped you grow, not take any bullshit?
Well, there's been sessions where a producer would say, hey, I got a drum beat. Just vibe with the drum beat. And I would vibe. And then that vibe would be all of the melodic information for the song, including the melody and the chord changes.
Oh, shit.
And I was much younger. And I learned my lesson because I was credited as a guitar player and not a writer.
Oh, fuck.
Or a composer. and somebody else got the credit and ended up being on an album which would rename Nameless.
That's cool. But did you lose a lot of money?
I don't know how much money they made, but I lost some money because I didn't.
Yeah.
It's whatever it is. It was my money, whether it was $5 or $10.
Exactly.
The point is that at any given moment, if somebody decided to use that song on a movie or anything, that person or those people would be credited and not myself. And so I learned how to go into any type of situation and realize, in the situation like that, and discuss business
right
before even playing. There's been times where I be noodling around while I'm getting sounds, and that noodling was being recorded and then chopped up and placed in hip hop songs.
It's fucking
wild.
What
I mean? Stuff like that. It's stuff like that happens, and it's it's a common thing that goes on. But I just learned my lesson from that type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's experience too.
It's experience, yeah. You know how to navigate. You know what to do. You got my sound? Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I think about like George Porter, like all those meter songs that he didn't get any royalties for. That's all over those hip hop tracks now. I mean, like we're learning from our ancestors and our generations before us. What can we teach the generation next about what we've been treated like in the music industry?
Yeah, we the same thing we're just talking about now. Just taking our experiences and sharing that with them, and just really trying to get younger musicians and artists to understand as much as they can about the business and understand, the role, whatever role that you're playing, whether it be in a session or whatever. Are you just a guitar player? Are you just a bass player? Okay, is there arrangements already? Is there a chord structure there already? Are there lyrics already? And understanding that that you are contributing, if you are indeed including, adding something to a composition, or a song, where like, okay, that song it's not the song if that part isn't there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and that's creating, and you're partly a writer.
Yeah, and it's greed, isn't it? Why are we so greedy in this country?
Well, in the world, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
I don't mean to correct you, but yeah,
you're right.
The world can be a bit shady, but it's people get away with what they can get away with, and it's up to you to be able to be as aware and open-minded as possible, or as some people say, not sleep. And that takes a bit of studying and knowledge, not just music. Knowledge in your field. Knowledge in what you're doing. You're not gonna use a painter is not gonna use indoor paint outside.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's got to understand the difference.
Was your dad savvy with the music business, or was he just a great musician?
Well, he started to be savvy in the later years. He was just like a lot of musicians back in the day, where they didn't understand the business back in the 60s and 70s. And as he trial and error and the experiences, he learned a lot, and that he helped me. And then the things that he didn't know, I took it a step further. And then my daughter's a musician now. She's 13.
How old are you?
I'm 33.
You had a kid at 20?
Well, 19, yeah.
Holy
I'll
shit.
be 34 in a couple months.
Was it an accident, or were you married?
No, it wasn't an accident at all. It was my girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
So we were together, and we decided to have a child and stuff. Yeah, I basically, going to be teaching her those things. I'm slowly, telling her things that she needs to know in case she wants to do it for a living.
Tell me the experience you had raising a kid as being an up-and-coming musician.
Well, it's I had to learn balance, knowing when to say yes and when to say no about to gigs and stuff like that. Learn how to take gigs that matter. That's going to really make a difference either in my career or financially, and taking that time out. And if it's not going to kind of how can I say benefit either one, then I need to be taking that time out to spend time with my daughter, and also trying to take her out with me when I'm, as much as possible when I can, when the environment is proper, So it's a balance. Communication is key. Your presence when you have a child is key. And it took some adjusting because, you're growing up, you're 19 years old, you're still trying to figure out life yourself.
Right, exactly.
And, I'm 33, still trying to figure out life, I'm sure 65-year-olds still trying to figure out. They got a good grip on most things, but there's always something to learn. And so, at that age, I just had to make some adjustments, and I'm adjusting every day as I mature. Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me when you're, were you making money in 19? I guess you started working on the D'Angelo record when you were 19, right?
19, 20 years old, yeah.
So were you on salary with D'Angelo, or was it like a prove it deal, or what was it like?
Well, it was pretty much, get paid through the union, you get paid, whatever your rate is for a session, just like most sessions are, and that's how I always kind of treated it, like that.
So like when you're in these sessions, was it intimidating? Like give me a little like inside scoop of how D'Angelo produces, or who was producing that record?
He was producing it. Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, he plays everything too. So was it like, you talk to this idea where this guy has the whole thing in production and you're playing. Was it that same feeling with D'Angelo?
Well, D'Angelo usually has an idea. He definitely has a great idea of what he wants. And sometimes it can be notes, on the guitar that he wants to be played in this certain feel. And then sometimes it's just the feeling that he's looking for. And that's what most artists and most musicians that know what they want. They may not be able to play it themselves. That's why they hired you.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they want what you have to contribute to the situation. And so it's a nice combination between what he wants it to feel like. Sometimes it can be an exact note or set of notes, and he wants you to execute it with your feel. And sometimes it's just the feeling that he wants you to kind of, put your input in on it, So he's pretty open, but very, very true to whatever the structure and the feeling that he wants for the song.
That's what I was going to ask. Like how, you're talking about whenever maybe there might have been a moment where you guys butted heads. Like how did you have to take your ego out of it, or did you have to like listen or can you like bark back, say, I think it's this way? Or was that type of relationship?
With the artist, I never try to butt heads with artists, only because, that song is their baby.
Yeah.
And what I think of something doesn't matter in someone else's picture and paint. I can say all day, well, I feel like it could go this way. And that's cool if it's my song, and I might say, well, what do you, it's okay sometimes to say, what do you think about this, if they're unsure.
Right.
But if there's a definite thing like, boom, this is what I want, I have to play that and respect that, because who knows what else, he might add later that might be, kind of countering or going, working or marrying with another part in the song. So I always stay open-minded, and there are some things that when I work with other artists, I'm like, in my mind, why would they want to do that? But then when I hear the big picture,
yeah,
it works, and it's their vision, and it's like, damn, I would have never thought about that.
What was the moment? Like, what song was it where you thought about that? If you want to express it,
I can't remember an exact song, I want to say, but there has been moments with different artists, but again, you learn your place, you respect the vision,
yeah,
and you go and you move forward, and hear it out. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm thinking that something's not working, and I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes it is like that, and then sometimes if it's really not the right thing, the artist will say it eventually. No, just don't worry about that. Don't do that. Or what you think? And I say, well, let's try this. Always leave the room open. You never want to outshine the master.
In their head, right?
And yeah, you never want to outshine the master. I could be the greatest guitar player in the world, and a person may have a song and they hear a part on that song. But if it doesn't matter how great I am, if I can't execute being a part that they need in order to create and finish their vision, I'm not such a great guitar player. I'm not such a good musician. That's my job, is to help paint your picture.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about that.
Is that what drives you?
Yeah, that's one of the things that drives me is, you think as a producer when you're playing your instrument. You think as a, I think the camera's falling.
Cool.
I think as a musician, you should think like a producer. A producer is ultimately trying to get the song to be at its best, and you're trying to almost read the artist's mind. You know what I'm saying? And so, you do that, and then if there's something that you can do with what they give you, or that vision to improve it, then you do that. And sometimes what you may think improve it might fuck it all up, and so it just depends.
Yeah.
It just depends, because again, you can never know exactly what a person's vision is, and who are we to intrude on that,
So with that same philosophy, what about when you're producing your own type of music?
It's the same thing. I think I always try to give the musicians that I work with my vision, and sometimes what I give them may not be exactly what I need, and I leave the floor open for them to, when it becomes a train wreck. Sometimes I'll leave the floor open for them to make suggestions, and sometimes their suggestion will work, or sometimes it won't. Sometimes we might collab and say, okay, well, what about splitting the difference between this and this? And then that works. So it's just being open. At the end of the day, you just want to make it. It's not about ego. It's not about who's the best guitar player or the bass player or drummer or anything. Put the ego aside and let's make the song or the music do what it needs to do, at the end of the day.
What about when it comes to your own music that you're producing?
The same thing.
Okay, so like you like writing with people, or do you like having outside voices helping you construct these songs, or do you like just taking the lead on it?
Sometimes it happens in different ways. Sometimes, I'm writing most of it, and a lot of times when I write music, it's alone. A lot of times, in my own space. And then there's been times where me and my keyboardist Tim Trippett, or me and the bass player Maurice Fitzgerald, or even the drummer Eric, we'll all just stumble up on something and create from there. And sometimes, because it's like my album, I kind of give the feeling of direction of where I want the album to be, the vein, and then they kind of just flow from that. You have to take some sort of lead if it's your project, but not be narcissistic and be like, this is it. You don't want to be like that.
Was there any albums looking back where you felt like, hey, I was a little jaded there?
I think I think some stuff I think I would have probably did different.
Like which record?
There is that's a good question. I would have probably did a song that I wrote called LH. I would have had another drummer do it. I did the drums.
Yeah.
I did the drums. And it wasn't bad at all. It's just, I think that track date, I didn't have anybody available to play the drums.
Okay, call space. Man.
And so I called the drummer in to replace the drums. And before I let him play it, I let him listen to it. He's like, don't touch him. I was like, what? He said, don't touch him. I'm like, dude, but you could kill it. You could kill it way better than mine. He's like, no, you said what it had to say, and so it sounds great. Leave it alone. Is there another song you want me to play? And I should have listened to my gut and allow him to play it anyway, even though he said, that it was good. Because now, that can haunt you, if you don't go with your gut instinct.
Right.
You have to live with that.
It's so funny. Why don't we trust our first instinct? Sometimes. I mean, it's always the one we always go back to.
Yeah, I think sometimes overthinking.
Yeah.
Sometimes overthinking can cause you not to trust your gut, or sometimes outside influences that causes pressure. Trying to compare your stuff to someone else's music. And, like, well, I got to stand up to this. And it's like, wait a minute. No, what is it about? Is it about the way you say things and the way you want things to be? So sometimes that can question your gut instinct.
You've worked with so many people in so many different eras of people's careers, like Isley Brothers, fucking John Mayer, D'Angelo. What's the difference between the growth of a musician when they're writing music in the studio, say like with the old heads like Isley's versus a D'Angelo in his prime or John Mayer later in his life? Is there a lot of the parallels the same in the recording sessions, or does everyone have their own different vibe in how they're recording?
I think all of them have their own different vibes. You know, John is very, all of them are very particular about what they want in their own ways. You know, D focuses on, a lot of the feel and tone too. I mean, they all have their different ways. I think they all have the same kind of things that they focus on, but they have their own ways of getting to it. You know what I'm saying? In their own ears. It's just like two people can play a Boss pedal, right? The Boss DS1, and it sounds totally different, you know? And it's just the way they hear things, you know? And so you kind of just learn how other people hear and put that in your musical palette and be like, okay, I got that in my back pocket in case somebody wants me to say, hey, I need that type of sound. I need this type of approach. Right. And you just use that and have that in your arsenal. You know? And
has that made you a better producer, just being in the studio with all these guys?
Absolutely, because you got more than just your way of looking at music and getting, thinking about sonics and, learning just shit, just learning. Also, I've been in studios where drummer would take a old suitcase, those old school hard shell suitcase, and make it a kick drum. I had never seen that shit in my life.
And it had a great tone?
It was great.
Yeah.
And nobody to this day would know. I won't say what record it is.
It's okay.
Because that's their shit. But but it made a huge difference. And I would have never thought of that. So then I was like, oh, well, I got that in case I know how to get that sound. But then it should spark other, that concept should spark other concepts. Like, what if I use this as a kick drum?
Right.
What if I use this as a snare? And this is, and so on and so forth. So, learning from these other people will automatically give you even more growth in your own imagination. So being in different situations definitely helps.
What about like when you're in a session with a producer that's also an amazing guitar player? Is it just like, is it a pissing war? Is it okay? Like what's the vibe?
I haven't experienced that just yet. I think if a guitar player calls me in for a session, it's usually because it's something that I do that they don't do. And it's already a level of respect to even have me in there.
Yeah.
And if it was a pissing war, I wouldn't be involved in it.
Right.
I would just be like, what do you want me to play?
Yeah.
You want me to play what you just played? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I submit to whatever. This is yours.
Yeah.
So I submit to that. Who gives a shit about who's better or whatever? At the end of the day, I could be the baddest dude in the world, but you hired me to play this part, and this is your record, so you the baddest dude in the world on this record.
Yeah.
So it just takes a level of maturity.
Who taught you this fucking calm, cool collectiveness, bro?
That's just me, man.
Yeah. Were you a troublemaker? Like, did you get into drugs or alcohol, anything?
I never got into drugs, man.
No?
I think I didn't start having drinks until after. In high school, I had maybe like sophomore year of high school. That's when I had my first drink. Of course, my parents didn't know, but they had water bottles at school. We could have water bottles. We couldn't have like soda and pop or whatever at the school. So they were big advocates about staying hydrated. And so, gin looks like water in a water bottle.
Let's go.
And so I put the gin in the water bottle, Tanqueray, and I drank it. And
you get in trouble?
No, nobody noticed, but my music teacher at school, and he was pretty cool.
Yeah,
he was pretty cool. But he's like, son, just stay in the band room for the rest of the day, because whatever.
But it never really got a hold of you, right? Alcoholism, or
I don't think so. I mean, there were moments where I was really having fun, with it. Never. I never got taken by it. I don't think. I've slowed down. Your recovery after 30 is kind of it's real. You know what I'm saying? After 30, it takes a little while to kind of recoup.
Yeah.
So I've slowed down quite a bit.
That's great.
But I do everything. I do what I do in moderation, and that's important. And I don't knock anybody who does anything else. If just be safe and do what you do. Who am I to judge? I don't know.
Yeah. You're not a really judging person?
No, why should I be?
Yeah.
If I point at you, I got a thumb and 3 fingers pointing back at me.
Yeah. I know. What,
you know what I mean?
That's the problem about, why are we so judgmental as Americans?
Well, I think that's a part. I think that has to do with a lot of insecurities and lack of understanding and ignorance. When you don't see life when you see life from just your perspective. I think that it's a mentality that's spilled over into politics, which we don't have to get deep into, religion, which we don't have to get deep into, but all of those different things has that. That's why you have so many different denominations in just in Christianity alone, and you have all of these different people, the parties in the government and all this. That everybody have their perspective, and it's okay to have your perspective as long as you don't make your perspective law.
Right.
There's a great philosopher named Sadhguru who I like, and he talks about how life is like a 1,000,000-piece puzzle, and everybody get a couple pieces. And how you put a puzzle together, you find the 3 pieces that fit, and you see a little image. But when you make those 3 pieces the big picture, that's a problem.
Right.
Because now it's the puzzle, you think it's finished, but it's got how many more pieces?
Right.
100-something thousand, 900-something thousand more pieces.
Yeah.
In that 1,000,000-piece puzzle. So it would be very arrogant of us to be judgmental when you don't know somebody's way and path of life that they have to walk through.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our problem is, lack of understanding, lack of consideration and empathy and, for others, I think at the end of the day,
It's the same philosophy for racism.
Yeah, all of it. It's a fear of something that takes you out of your comfort zone because you have made your perspective law.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's okay to have your perspective, but when it starts to negatively affect other people, that's where the issue comes.
Right.
And that's when war happens. Yeah. And that's when arguments occur. And then that's when separation and segregation and all these different things in music. Same thing with music. When we talk about music, if you have your way and perspective of something and you're in a band, it's like, okay, that's cool. But when it fucks up the groove,
right,
you have then made your perspective law.
Right.
You have then made what you think about it law.
And that's not music.
That's not music. And that's not life.
Yeah. Well, it's like the same thing about communication. Like, are you really communicating if you're not listening?
No, you're not.
No.
It's the root word is commune.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You're sitting with somebody. When you commune with someone, you're sitting, you're talking with them, not at them.
Right.
And so, commune or community.
Yeah.
It involves everybody else.
Right.
In order to have a community, you have to have several homes, families. This person might be a fireman.
Yeah.
This person might be a policeman. They're both necessary.
Yeah.
You have a doctor. You have a teacher. It's all necessary.
So maybe that's wrong with our society. No one's listening. They're just talking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, fucking thank you for that. I'm glad we researched that.
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah, thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Really nice to meet you. Are you here all week or you going out?
I'm here all week until the end.
You're doing a master class? What are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing Masters at Sea every day.
Right.
And I've been sitting in a couple of nights ago. I sat in with The Word with Robert Randolph.
Yeah. And Taz special.
Taz is amazing. I'm looking for him because I want to talk to him and tell him how great he is. I love Taz, but
were you that good when you were that young?
I was good. I was, was I that good? I don't know.
He was good.
He's great. I think.
Were you good at 11?
I think I was pretty good. I was my first record was when I was 14.
With who?
With my family. We was jazz record, straight ahead jazz album.
What was it called?
Skyliner.
Have you re-listened to it and see and judge yourself, or you like it?
I think I was doing my thing.
That's fucking cool. I like it.
I think I was doing something. Yeah. I transcribed a Wes Montgomery solo on there. It's note for note. So I think
14?
I think I was all right. But Taz has he has his own thing. You know, I love looking at young guitar players and listening to them and being like, God damn, it's amazing. I think that he probably was better than me. I haven't heard him play in different situations. At that age, I was playing in a lot of different situations. So it was rock and blues and jazz and R&B and gospel and this. So I haven't heard him in a lot of other settings, but I wouldn't be surprised if he could do it, But as far as technically, I think he's fucking brilliant, and I think that it should be, they should, younger players should be better. Yeah. If not, then what's the point? Right. It should be better. We should be able to say George Benson, then John Coltrane, then this person, then that person, and it should be always have some sort of evolution to it. If we're too arrogant to say like somebody's better or more technical or whatever, then that's different. And I wouldn't even say better. I would just say different. That's his voice. Right. Let him be him. There's another guitar player that I love, Kingfish. Oh yeah, young cat. Oh yeah, and he's the man. Yeah, he's killing. He's killing the game right now, and so is Taz. And then you got Marcus King, who's a badass. He's still in his 20s. He's Billy Strings. Bad as shit. Yeah. Melanie Faye. Who else? So many players, man. So many players. And I love them all, and I steal shit from them too. What do you consider a good guitar player? Like, what is like the task that a guitar player needs to do to get Isaiah's ears perking? Play music. Right. Anybody could play guitar, but like in a musical situation, which that's what we do, I want to hear you play music. I want to hear you play things that are meaningful and things that I can feel. Mm-hmm. I want to hear an effective player, not just an impressive one. That's what I'm fucking talking about. What I'm saying? Talk to me. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear your scales, or I don't want just to show that you have good technique. I want you to have it's just back to communication. Everybody has. Everybody and their mama got an instrument, and you can go on YouTube and you can learn how to play, and you can learn Satriani licks and Steve Vai licks, and learn how to play like Jimi Hendrix. But okay, it's like, all right, like my dad said, those are the right notes. Yeah, but where's the soul? Where's the soul? Where's the feeling? And isn't this what it's all about? Yeah. Okay, so let me hear you. Let me hear what you got to say. What was your first song where you felt like I'm finally talking to people? First song? Like you felt you wrote that I feel like you're talking to people. I don't know about song. I think or session or I think nowadays, I think I've always had something to say, but I think now more than ever I've been able to express myself honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just because I've, over the years accumulated a certain amount of experience and information to be able to express myself and also lived a little life, a little bit, we had some ups and downs and some trials and tribulations and some great moments and some heartbreaks, and I broke some hearts and all types of shit. And taking all of that with me. And really, really, really just being true to myself. And at this point in my life, I'm like, hey, if you want to be the baddest guitar player in the world, go ahead. Right. Just know that you're going to hear somebody that can fucking, shred really, 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 really good. Yeah. And it's always going to be somebody with a perspective and a way of doing things that are way different than yours. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make them better. It's just different. And so I want to be whatever I'm going to be. And I feel like I'm a very simple guitar player. Some people say, oh, you're very technical. I don't know about that. But maybe I am in certain ways. But maybe the technicality comes from the way that I think more so than what I do. Right. That's what happens with a lot of colleges. I'm not knocking, but at all. I think education is great. That shit. Tell me about Berkeley. No, I'm just kidding. I think what we have done, I think first of all, I think education. I'm an advocate about education. I think you should be educated. You should know music theory. You should be able to know whatever you can know to not have a limitation. But I am not an advocate of trying to have a curriculum to sound like someone.
Right.
Or you cannot teach someone how to feel.
Right. That's why I didn't understand classical music. Like, just to like, you're made, I mean, it's great to learn the technique, but like, isn't music about creating your own stuff?
Yeah. Well, I think classical is a whole nother monster in itself, which is necessary because, you know, sometimes the feeling is in the composition. And I think that's more of what it is. Like, I can still listen to Chopin or Beethoven or Mozart and learn something from it. And I think I'm sure those guys were super passionate about getting their shit right. And so that passion spilled out into their music, in the recordings and the music that they wrote. They made sure that they used the right signs and symbols and stuff for people to play that emotion. You know, and I wouldn't doubt that some of that stuff was improvised and then jotted down, you know.
Right.
And so that might have been their way of doing it. Now, am I a classical musician? No, I think the technique is great, and I think that some of the progressions are marvelous. I mean, you look at like a pianist like Art Tatum, who studied classical music and took the classical music and you know, took the structure, took the some of the language of it, and then just stretched it and used jazz harmonies and everything, and just made a whole thing. Same thing with Lenny Bro. Lenny was dope. He was super dope, you know, and he took a little bit of Chet Atkins and Merle Travis and all of those people, along with the classically trained stuff and the flamenco playing, and then the jazz, and then some of the R&B stuff that was soul stuff that, you know, was happening during that day. And he applied it, you know. So I think, you know, anything that I can't criticize anything that anyone was moved by. You know, some people are moved by those classical compositions.
But get back to what you're talking about, education.
But yeah, education. I think that, you know, I think I said exactly what I wanted to say. It was that it's one thing to be educated about music, and then there's another thing to be taught. This is how you improvise.
Right.
This is how you feel. That you're going to be a clone, and we found out that there's a lot of clones. We shouldn't be playing the same thing that Charlie Parker played. I think that we learn those things and be inspired by that. And that should trigger some ideas in us to be able to have our own voice and say something, because typically that's what they did. You know, you had standards. The standards were songs that were popular during those times, and they improvised over those things, how they felt.
Right.
And so how would you do all the things you are? Do you have to swing it? Do you have to do this type of bebop chop over that? Is there a right or wrong way to improvise? I think that, and you know, there is a language that is there that you respect, but then take it somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Do something with it. Don't be limited to something, and the music doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, 70 years later.
Yeah. God, it's so amazing how music and life are so parallel. Because, like, you know, like you said, like, you didn't want to be that strict dad that your dad was, but you also want to learn the good things about it to be your own person. I feel like it's the same conversation we're having about music. It's like, you don't want to do exactly the same thing, but I want to learn from it and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about music, right?
Yeah. The moment you try to, how can I say this in a very, very non-X-rated way?
It's okay. This is a NC-17 show.
You'll be very unsatisfied if you decide to make love with someone else's body.
Right.
Okay?
That makes sense.
You can't, you have to use your own body. Otherwise, you won't feel anything.
Right.
right?
Holy shit. I'm clapping to that stuff.
Right? And that's just one aspect of it, you know, but like, you know, in another way you could say this, what you eat don't make me shit.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, what I eat is going to make me shit. So let me be able to say what I have to say. Let me do what I have to do. This is how I feel. This is where I'm at.
Right.
That's how you are. And that makes it more exciting. It makes it way more exciting when it's, you know, more to listen to, man.
That's why I didn't understand A&R. You know, like old school A&R. It's a little changed now where artists have a little more control. But like when you're getting $1 million deals back in the day, and you had these A&R guys just telling you, "Oh, we're shelving that record. We don't think that's it." You know, but it's
well, a lot of the record labels, the people that work there are, you know, the high ups that don't have anything to do with music. They are like car salesmen.
Yeah,
they're you know, people who sell insurance and all that type of stuff, and they're looking for. You look at it like this. What's the biggest hit right now, right?
right.
So in this genre. Okay, you're trying to be in that genre. Let's see if it matches that hit.
Right.
Because that's what made us a lot of money. So we want to stick to that. It's no different from cars.
Right.
You look at a Lincoln, you look at a Cadillac.
But that
Navigator is the same car
exactly
as an Escalade.
Yeah.
It's just a different name.
But like that's the same philosophy you're talking about, like learning from Chopin and not doing Chopin. So what? It's like this back and forth of the industry wants us to be Chopin, but we want to be us. Like, how do we say fuck all that and be us?
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's you say, okay, how different is a Nissan from a Toyota?
Yeah,
you know, or like I said, a Lincoln from a Cadillac,
right?
Or you know, a Tahoe or whatever. You know, like a Yukon and a Tahoe. What's the difference? If you really think about it, small little things.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, that's so let our company will make the same thing, but it's gonna be we're gonna add this little thing. It's the same thing with, you know, with some instrument companies.
Right.
You know? We've seen certain type of style guitars before. What's the next one?
Right.
What's the next thing that's gonna make something different? We don't have to make duplicates.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know, that's
progress.
Progress. And expand. You know what I mean? So you seen a clavinet, you saw a clavinet. You saw a Rhodes, you saw a Rhodes.
Right.
You saw a Wurlitzer. A Wurlitzer doesn't do what a Rhodes does.
Right.
Organ doesn't do what a, you know, Farfisa does. You know, it's different. It's just different stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I appreciate about a lot of the older things. It was the first of its kind. You know, when do we create some more innovative things? I'm not saying that nothing's innovative, but okay, they did that. What are you going to do?
Right.
It
So
just helps.
basically progress.
Just progress, man.
Let's progress.
Yeah.
Well, let's progress out of this conversation
Yes,
because
sir.
I really did enjoy that, and let's keep it there.
Thank you for having me.
Isaiah, thanks for being on the show. I know you're a busy guy. Big fan.
Thank you.
I love what you do, and maybe one day we'll share a stage together.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, buddy.